I waited all day. The phone never rang. No text, no knock at the door, not even a lazy emoji from my son or the woman I helped him marry. On Mother's Day. At 8:12 p.m., I stepped outside to water my roses, then paused, turned, and opened the loan account on my tablet. The one I'd co-signed for their car. I clicked Pause Payment. If they could forget me, I whispered, maybe I could forget. Just one bill. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. Wasn't always like this. There was a time when I would have laughed at the idea of pausing anything, especially something meant to help my son. I was the dependable one, the early riser, the woman who packed lunches in brown paper bags and left little notes that said, "You've got this, kiddo." I was a high school English teacher for 32 years, a widow since I was 41. Life didn't give me any special favors, but I made it beautiful in my own quiet way. I raised my son Ben on my own. I worked late, graded papers while he did his homework, and made peace with silence when the house got too quiet. He was my purpose, my reason for everything. And for a long time, I thought I'd done a good job. Ben was kind as a boy, thoughtful, even gentle. When his father passed, he was only 10. Too young to understand the gravity, but old enough to sit with me on the floor while I cried and say, "I'll take care of you when I'm older, Mom. I promise." It's funny how promises like that get buried under years of convenience. Did grow up strong. He was smart, driven, a little stubborn. Got into a good state college, and when he couldn't cover his last year of tuition, I dipped into my retirement savings to help. I never even told him I did it, just told him, "It's covered, sweetheart. Focus on your finals." That was the first time I quietly sacrificed something for him. The first of many. When he met Erica, I was hopeful. She was confident, stylish, and sharp-tongued in a way I admired. At first, she called me Mama June and said I reminded her of her favorite aunt. We cooked together once. She brought over lavender soap as a gift. I was relieved. I thought, maybe she'll love him enough to keep the sweetness in him alive. But love, I've learned, doesn't always come in the package you expect. They got engaged quickly. I helped pay for the wedding photographer, $2,800 I hadn't planned to spend. They called it a loan, but no one ever brought it up again. I didn't mind. Not then. I told myself that being generous was part of who I was, that mothers give, that mothers should give. When they had their first baby, I practically moved into their guest room for 2 weeks. Cooked, cleaned, rocked the baby to sleep at 3 a.m. so Erica could rest. She posted a photo later and thanked her doula for helping her stay sane. My name wasn't mentioned. Again, I said nothing. It's strange, looking back now, how often I chose silence over self-respect. But at the time, I called it love. 2 years ago, they asked if I could co-sign on a new SUV. They needed something bigger for the kids. And Erica's credit wasn't great. I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds. Then I said, "Of course." They promised they'd never miss a payment. And to their credit, they didn't. Not until I missed a call that mattered to me. What I've come to understand is that I was never asking for grand gestures. Not diamonds, not expensive gifts. Just the same attention they gave her mother. Same care they gave their boss or their friends on birthdays. A phone call, a text, a dollar store card that said, "Hey Mom, we see you." But this year, silence. Not the forgetful kind, the kind that screams, "We don't care anymore. You're not essential now." And maybe that's the part that breaks you, the moment you realize your love was seen as a utility. Something they used, not something they valued. Still, I remember who I was, before the forgetting, before the slow erasure. I was June Thompson. I taught over 1,200 students. I published 2 short stories in my local writers group. I grew heirloom tomatoes and took long walks at sunrise. I sang along to Linda Ronstadt while folding laundry. I was kind. I was reliable. I was a damn good mother, and I still am. But now I'm learning to be something else too. A woman who recognizes when she's being taken for granted and does something about it. I didn't stop being a mother that day. I started being a woman who finally remembered her own worth. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you Ben and Erica were just busy. That's what I always said to friends when they asked why I hadn't seen my son in weeks, or why Erica never came to the phone when I called. They've got their hands full, I'd say, laughing like it didn't ache. You know how it is with young families. And I did know. I'd lived it. Without the village they always said they didn't have. But that's the difference, I guess. I never asked for help. I just figured it out. Packed my lunch, did the laundry, clipped coupons, and got on with it. Maybe that was my mistake, making it all look too easy. After Ben and Erica had their second child, things shifted. Not all. At once, just in little, almost invisible ways. Less thank you, more can you? I became the backup plan, the free babysitter. The emergency contact they remembered when someone had to pick up their son from daycare. I didn't mind, not at first. I loved those children more than I could explain. Their tiny hands, the way they'd curl against me during naps, the innocence. They made me feel useful again, like I was needed, but the thanks grew fewer, the assumptions got louder. There was the time I stayed overnight with the kids so Ben and Erica could have a date night. They came home at 2 a.m., a little drunk, loud and giggling, while I was asleep on their couch with the baby monitor on my chest. Erica didn't even say goodnight. Ben just mumbled, "Thanks, Mom," before heading upstairs. Or the Christmas morning they didn't come. No warning, no apology, just a group photo posted to Erica's social media, smiling in matching pajamas at her sister's cabin in Vermont. I found out the same way everyone else did, by scrolling. The worst part? I still made excuses for them. Still told myself, it's not personal, they're just overwhelmed. They'll come around. But slowly, a pattern emerged. I started noticing how differently they treated Erica's family. Her mother Linda got flowers, spa gift certificates, thoughtful Facebook tributes on Mother's Day. I got radio silence. At first I blamed Erica, told myself maybe she was insecure or possessive of Ben's time. Maybe she didn't like the closeness we used to have. But over time, I had to admit it, Ben was complicit. His silence was an answer I didn't want to hear. It became clear in the small decisions. They would plan birthday parties for the kids and tell me a week before or after. They'd ask me to swing by for help, but never invite me to sit and stay. Erica once said offhandedly, "You're just always so available. I wish my mom could drop everything like you." She said it like a compliment. It felt like a warning. Looking back, I see it now. I made myself too easy, too ready, too reliable. They didn't see it as love. They saw it as default. And Mother's Day? That was always my barometer. The one day I allowed myself to hope. Last year, they sent a text at 4:37 p.m. It said, "Happy Mother's Day. Love you. No call, no visit, no flowers." I told myself not to cry. I went out and bought myself a little orchid from the grocery store. I told the cashier, "It's for Mother's Day," and she smiled like she understood. This year, I told myself I wouldn't expect anything, that I'd just go about my day like it was any other Sunday. But hope is a funny thing. It's a stubborn tenant. It clings. I made coffee early, set out the biscotti Ben used to love. I even put on lipstick. By noon, I knew they weren't coming. By 6 p.m., I'd stopped pretending to wait. It wasn't just that they forgot. It was that they didn't care they forgot, and that made something inside me go very still. When people show you who they are, believe them. But when your own child shows you, you never unsee it. 2 days after Mother's Day, I found out the truth. Not just that they had forgotten, but that I had been deliberately left out. It started with a phone call from Diane, an old colleague and friend of mine who still lived a few blocks away from Erica's mother. We were catching up, talking about arthritis and bad cable service, when she said casually, "You looked beautiful on Sunday." I blinked. Sunday? Mother's Day. I figured they took you out too. I saw the brunch photos. Linda was glowing. My stomach tightened. What photos? Oh, they were on Facebook for a minute. Erica posted a whole album. You didn't see? I told her I hadn't. Diane paused, suddenly awkward. Maybe they just celebrated early with you? I mumbled. Something like maybe, and ended the call. Then I sat in the silence of my kitchen, sunlight bleeding across the linoleum, and opened my laptop. I typed in Erica's profile. We weren't friends anymore. She had unfollowed me months ago after a passive-aggressive comment I made about always babysitting. But her profile picture was public, and there it was, a professionally edited photo album. Erica, Ben, their kids, and her mother Linda, all smiling in front of an ivy-covered restaurant in the city. Champagne glasses raised, matching floral dresses. The caption read, "Celebrating the most amazing mother and woman we know. Thank you for teaching us strength, grace, and unconditional love. We love you, Mom." The words didn't just sting. They lodged inside me like splinters. Ben stood behind Linda in one of the photos, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. The same way he used to rest it on mine when he was growing up. Erica's head was tilted against her mother's with effortless intimacy. The children, my grandchildren, were beaming in linen outfits I'd never seen before. I scrolled through, each photo slowly, as if punishing myself. Not one mention of me, not one sign that I had even existed that day. I wasn't busy. I hadn't declined an invitation. I had simply been omitted. There was no forgetting. Only replacement. I closed the laptop and stared out the kitchen window at my garden. The rose bushes were blooming this year, deep red, almost violet. I had planted them in memory of my husband. He'd loved the color red, said it reminded him of warmth, of passion. I thought about all the Mother's Days I'd celebrated in silence. About the year I made my own breakfast and left it on a tray in bed just to pretend someone had done it for me. About the old cards Ben used to make when he was little. Misspelled words and glitter glue, the kind of love that feels unshakable. And now? Now I was watching my own son praise another woman as the most amazing mother while I was home eating. Toast, I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stood there for a long time. Then I walked to the hall closet, pulled out the worn blue folder where I kept important papers, and flipped to the back. The car loan contract was still there, my signature on the bottom line next to Ben's. That loan had been my idea. They needed help. Erica had maxed out her cards. Ben was between jobs. They were embarrassed, I could tell, but they hinted just enough, so I offered. "I'll co-sign," I said, "just until you're back on your feet. I never once missed a payment." I even called once to correct a billing error on their behalf. Because that's what mothers do, right? They show up, they cover, they protect, even when their own hearts are wearing thin. But something shifted that afternoon. It was no longer about the money or the loan. It was about something deeper, something that had been slowly dying, like roots starved of water. I realized I had allowed them to rewrite my role in their lives. I was no longer June, the mother who raised Ben, the woman who sacrificed her career growth to be home with him after school, who gave him her whole heart and the last of her savings. No, I had been demoted to useful old woman with a checkbook and a free schedule, and I had let it happen. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't eat dinner. I sat on my porch and watched the sky turn a bruised shade of pink. Then I walked inside, opened the bank portal on my tablet, and stared at the Manage Loan tab. There it was, pause payment, just one click. I didn't do it yet, but I looked at it. Hard, because if they could rewrite my story, maybe I could rewrite the ending. They had erased me from the photo, but I still held the pen, and I was finally ready to write my name back in, even if it meant crossing some lines. I used to believe that if you loved someone hard enough, they'd never forget you. That belief was born in my kitchen, on mornings when Ben was 5, maybe 6, legs swinging from the chair, cheeks sticky with syrup, hair poking out in every direction. He used to press crayon-scrawled cards into my hands, his M's upside down, saying, "You're my best mom in the whole wide world." And I believed him. I wore those words like armor. I still have a drawer full of those cards. Folded construction, paper, smudged hearts, his messy little signature. I used to keep them in a memory box under my bed, but a few years ago, I moved them into my nightstand, closer. Every time I felt that gnawing loneliness creep in, I'd open that drawer and... Remember, I mattered to someone. I was someone's world once. Back then, Ben didn't have much. Just me and a tiny backyard where we'd grow cherry tomatoes together every spring. We didn't have cable, no dishwasher, no vacations. But we had grilled cheese sandwiches, made-up bedtime stories, and those quiet, warm Sunday afternoons when we'd dance barefoot to James Taylor in the living room. There's a photo from one of those days. I'm in a flannel shirt, hair tied up, Ben standing on my feet, laughing with his head thrown back. It's tucked behind my dresser mirror. I used to look at it every morning, but after the Mother's Day silence, I turned it face down. It hurt. Too much to look at the little boy who had once clung to me like I was the sun, when the man he'd become now moved around me like I was background noise. I tried to pinpoint where the shift began. Was it when he met Erica? When the first baby came? Or had it started long before, and I just didn't want to see it? There were signs. Moments I brushed aside, like the time Ben told me not to bring a homemade dish to their potluck, because Erica thinks your food is kind of old-fashioned. Or the Christmas they gave me a candle with a gift tag that read, "To June," not, "Mom, just June," as if I were a neighbor. Or when Ben said, "You don't have to come to the baptism if it's too much trouble, Mom. It's mostly her side anyway." He said it kindly. That was the worst part. They were always polite when they excluded me, and I was always too gracious to call it what it was, being slowly phased out of my own child's life. After the brunch photos, I tried to distract myself. I cleaned out the pantry. I scrubbed the stovetop. I took out the recycling. But every chore felt hollow. Every task felt like I was moving through someone else's house. By dusk, I stood in front of the mirror and caught sight of my face. The soft lines that used to hold a smile now looked slack with exhaustion. And I said it aloud for the first time. They don't love me anymore. That broke me. I sank to the bathroom floor and wept, not loud, not dramatic, just this low, breathless sort of cry that lives in your chest when you've run out of explanations. A kind of mourning. I wasn't just grieving neglect. I was grieving relevance. I had built a life around Ben, around being his mother. It wasn't a sacrifice. I chose it, happily, willingly. I turned down dates after his father died, passed, on vacations, gave up promotions. I told myself there would be time later. But time doesn't wait for later, and no one tells you that motherhood can end in silence. Not death. Not distance, just diminishing. They don't warn you that one day you might be sitting in your own living room, surrounded by the echoes of laughter that used to live there, wondering if you gave too much. That night, after I'd pulled myself off the floor and rinsed my swollen eyes, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, sat at the kitchen table with the tablet in front of me, opened the bank portal. The words blinked back at me. Manage loan account, next payment. Due May 15. I stared at the screen for a long time. My finger hovered above the tab. I thought about the times they said, "We'll pay you back," and never did. The times they needed me and I came running. The birthdays forgotten, the thank yous unspoken, the candle labeled June, and then I thought, what would happen if, just once, I chose me? So I clicked pause payment, just like that. Not out of spite, out of survival. Have you ever reached that quiet breaking point, the one where something inside you shifts forever? Share your story in the comments. It's okay to speak your truth here. When I finally broke, I didn't shatter. I simply let go. And in that letting go, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. The morning after, I paused the payment. The sky opened up with a quiet rain, not a storm. Just a steady, soothing mist that tapped against the windows and softened the edges of everything. It felt like the world was exhaling with me. I didn't expect to feel peace, but I did. Not guilt, not regret. Just the kind of stillness that comes when you finally do something for yourself after a lifetime of bending. I sat with my tea in the kitchen, watched the droplets slide down the glass, and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. No phone call came, no text from Ben, no check-in, no, "Mom, did something happen?" It confirmed what I had started to suspect. They weren't just forgetful. They were comfortable. Comfortable assuming I'd always be there, holding up their lives from behind the curtain. And for the first time, I didn't feel panicked about that. I felt free. Later that week, I ran into Marcia, my neighbor from 2 houses down. We've nodded to each other over hedges for years, but rarely spoke beyond "weather's turning" and "trash day got moved." That day, she stopped me as I was clipping the dead heads off my rose bushes. "You ever try pottery?" she asked. I blinked. Pottery? Yeah. There's a little studio in town. Real low-key, Tuesday mornings, a few of us from the block go. She hesitated, then added, "We could use another set of hands." I almost said no. Instinct told me to decline. I've lived in the rhythm of other people's needs for so long. I didn't know how to move to the beat of my own desires, but something about the way she asked, casual, not intrusive, made me pause, and so I said, "Why not?" That following Tuesday, I stood in a small room that smelled like wet clay and lavender soap, my hands sunken into a cool, spinning lump of earth. The instructor, a kind woman named Helen with silver braids and a paint-streaked apron, showed me how to center the clay with steady pressure. "Don't fight it," she said. "Just guide it." There was something about the way her hands moved, confident, relaxed, unafraid of the mess, that moved me. That day, I shaped a lopsided bowl. It collapsed twice before it held form. But when I finally lifted it from the wheel, slick with imperfections, I felt proud. Not because it was beautiful, because it was mine. That small thing, making something just for me, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been dormant for years. Like shaking the dust off a woman I had forgotten to be. That night, I pulled out my old journal. It had been untouched for nearly a decade, buried under tax folders and church bulletins. The leather cover was cracked. The pages smelled faintly, of lavender from an old sachet I'd tucked inside. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, "Things I want to do before next Mother's Day. Make 6 clay bowls, go to Santa Fe in the fall. Take a watercolor class stop waiting for phone calls that never come start saying no without an explanation." The list wasn't long, but it was mine, and that felt revolutionary. I started making small changes, rearranged the living room, donated 3 bags of things I had kept out of obligation, took long walks in the morning, let myself wander down streets I hadn't noticed before. I began asking myself, what do I want today? Not what needs to be done, not who needs something, but what do I want? Some days the answer was simple: tea on the porch, a nap in the afternoon sun. Other days it was harder. Wanting, after years of serving, can feel like greed. But I reminded myself, it's not selfish to take up space in your own life. And as I moved through these days, the weight began to shift. The sadness was still there, like an old song playing in the background, but it didn't control the rhythm anymore. I even smiled once when I saw Erica's name pop up on my phone. I didn't answer, but I didn't feel angry, just indifferent, because for the first time in years, I wasn't orbiting their lives anymore. I had stepped back into the center of my own. I thought cutting them off, even slightly, would leave me hollow. But instead, it made room for something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone finally rang. Ben. His name blinked on my screen, unfamiliar now in its urgency. I almost didn't answer, but something told me it was time. "Mom," he said, voice tight, no hello. "Did you forget to make the car payment?" I paused, let the silence stretch. "No," I said evenly. "I didn't forget." There was a beat, then confusion, then suspicion. "What do you mean?" "I saw the date," I said. "I chose not to pay it." I heard him inhale sharply, like someone walking into cold water. "Why would you do that?" he said. "You know it affects my credit, right?" He didn't ask if something was wrong. He didn't check on me. He just launched straight into damage control. That told me everything. "I know," I said calmly. "But I figured if I don't matter enough to get a phone call on Mother's Day, I shouldn't matter enough to be your financial safety net either." There was silence. Not just confusion now, anger, tightening like a fist. "Mom, come on. You're really going to punish me over one day?" "One day?" I repeated. "It's been years, Ben. One day just confirmed what I didn't want to believe." He was quiet again, but I could hear him thinking. Frantic, trying to figure out what version of himself to be: apologetic, defensive, dismissive. He settled on defensive. "Erica said we were too busy this year," he snapped. "We were juggling the kids, and you know how hard things have been with the house and my hours." I didn't let him finish. "You managed to find time for a champagne brunch with her mother." He went quiet again. "I saw the photos, Ben." His breath caught. "I didn't need a brunch," I added. "I didn't need anything fancy, just a call, a message, a reminder that I hadn't become invisible." He let out a long, heavy breath, suddenly sounding smaller. "You could have just told me you were upset." "I have," I said. "In 100 little ways, every time I stayed quiet, every time I swallowed a hurt feeling and smiled through it." He didn't respond. "And this isn't punishment," I said. "It's clarity. I've spent too long being useful instead of being loved. I'm correcting that now." Another silence. Then the line clicked off. No goodbye. The next day, Erica called. I didn't answer the first time, or the second. On the third try, I picked up. "June," she said, skipping the pleasantries. "We just got a notice that the car loan is delinquent." "Yes," I said. I paused it. "You what?" I didn't raise my voice. Didn't explain myself again. I didn't owe her that. "Why?" she asked, the word sharp with accusation. "You're risking our credit over your feelings?" "My feelings have been ignored for years," I said. "Now I'm listening to them," Erica scoffed. "This is manipulative, vindictive." "No," I said gently. "This is overdue." She fell quiet for a moment, then tried a new tactic. "I know Ben forgot Mother's Day, but we've been under a lot of stress. You could have had a conversation. You didn't have to be petty." I almost laughed. "You had a whole brunch with your mother, Erica. Matching dresses, champagne, a photographer. Don't insult me by pretending it was just forgetting." She didn't respond. "Here's the thing," I continued. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done." Done? Done pretending that being treated like an afterthought is okay. Done being used. There was a beat of silence. And then, like clockwork, "Ben's gonna fix it. We'll handle it." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I hope you do." And I hung up. No yelling, no insults, just truth, laid bare and spoken softly. That evening, I sat on the porch with a slice of lemon cake I'd bought for myself from a little bakery downtown. The sun was low, dipping behind the houses like it, too, had somewhere better to be. My phone stayed quiet. There were no apologies, no knocks at the door. But inside me, something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like someone's backup plan. I didn't feel like I was bracing for the next request, the next ask, the next forgotten occasion. I just felt like me. The following week, I got a letter in the mail from the loan company. Ben had taken over the payments. No note, no explanation, just a quiet confirmation that he understood, at least, that I was serious. And in a strange way, that was enough. They expected me to fold, to resume my role. Instead, I reclaimed my name and let the silence speak louder than their excuses. It took them 2 weeks to show up. No call, no text. Just the sound of a car door slamming in my driveway on a Sunday afternoon, followed by hurried footsteps on the porch. I didn't get up. I was in the sunroom, trimming the yellowed leaves off a new plant I'd picked up from the nursery. It was a prayer plant, soft green with veins like lace, and something about its resilience had drawn me in. It folds inward at night and stretches, open in the light. Maybe I saw myself in that. The knock came, short and sharp. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the door, slow and measured. When I opened it, Ben stood there, hands jammed into his jacket pockets. Erica stood a few feet behind him on the walkway, arms crossed, eyes tight with irritation. "Can we talk?" he said. I nodded and stepped aside. Only Ben entered. Erica stayed on the sidewalk like it would stain her pride to enter my house again. Ben didn't sit. He hovered, pacing like a man with too many thoughts and too little language to say them. "This whole thing," he started, "it's gotten out of hand." I waited. "We've had to pay late fees. I had to call the credit bureau. Do you have any idea what that does to a loan when you miss a payment like that?" I nodded. "Yes," I said. "I've known it for years. That's why I never missed one. Until now." He looked at me, startled by the calm in my voice. "It's not about the money," I continued. "It never was." He sighed, clearly wanting me to be emotional, to match his level of urgency, but I didn't rise to it. "You're right," I said. "This has gotten out of hand, but it started years ago, not weeks. You just noticed now because it finally affected you." He sat down, finally, resting his elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "I didn't know you were so upset," he mumbled. "You didn't ask." He winced, but didn't argue. I studied him, the slouched shoulders, the thinning. Hair he used to spike up as a teenager, the fine lines around his eyes. This was my boy, my son, the one who used to leave notes on my pillow, who once cried because he broke my favorite coffee mug and tried to glue it back together with Elmer's. "I know things changed after Erica," I said. "That's normal. You grew up, built your own family. But Ben, I didn't stop being a person just because I stopped being your everything." His eyes lifted, cloudy with shame. "I've watched you celebrate her mother like royalty. Flowers, posts, brunches. You treat her like someone worthy of honor. And me? I get left on red. I get candle gifts with my first name on the tag." He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "This isn't about jealousy. It's about respect." He looked down again, and his voice dropped. "I didn't think it mattered to you." "Then you don't know me at all." I didn't mean it to wound, but it did. And for once, I didn't apologize for the truth. Ben leaned back in the chair, staring up at the ceiling. "So what now?" I walked to the kitchen, poured us both some water, came back and handed him a glass. "You take over your car loan. I remove my name from it. You stop relying on me to carry things you should have been carrying yourself." He looked at me, stunned. "And us?" he asked. "Where do we go from here?" I took a breath. Let the questions settle. "That's up to you," I said. "I'm still your mother, but I won't be your lifeline anymore. Not when I'm left drowning." He nodded slowly, the weight of it all pressing down. There were no defenses left in him. Just the soft ache of realizing too late that something had been breaking for years. From the porch, Erica called out, "Ben, we should go." He stood. His face was softer now, older somehow. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't say, it's okay." Because it wasn't. But I did say, "Thank you." He left, the door closing gently behind him. I stood there for a long time, hand resting on the frame, watching them drive away. This time, I didn't wonder if they'd call. I didn't wait for a text. I didn't expect flowers. I'd already given myself something better, the right to stop waiting. He walked out of my house thinking he'd ended a conversation. But for me, it was the beginning of a new life, with boundaries, clarity, and peace. A week passed, then another. No calls, no apologies. No surprises at my door with flowers or teary eyes. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt complete. Because what I'd done, it wasn't revenge, it wasn't bitterness, it was reclamation. I was reclaiming my time, my voice, my place. In the world that existed beyond being someone's mother, someone's backup plan, someone's reliable yes. They say motherhood never ends, and maybe that's true. But what I now understand is that self-sacrifice must. There comes a time when you stop bleeding for people who never notice the wound. Ben didn't call again. Erica didn't text. But I did receive a card in the mail about a month after our conversation. It was the kind of generic card you pick up last minute at the grocery store. Roses on the front, gold script that read, "Thinking of you inside," in Ben's handwriting. "Sorry for everything. We're working on things. Hope you're doing okay. Love, Ben and Erica." There was no apology from the heart, no acknowledgement of what they had done, only that something had occurred. Still, I didn't feel cold toward it. I just didn't feel much of anything at all. It felt like a receipt, not a reconciliation. I put the card in a drawer and went back to my book. Because life had moved forward. I had gone to 3 pottery classes by then. My latest bowl actually held water, something the instructor called progress with personality. I'd framed a photo of that first messy piece and set it by the window right next to the prayer plant, which was thriving now, lush and lively. I began meeting Marcia and 2 other women every Friday for coffee and gossip. It started with small talk, but slowly we shared more, laughed louder. It reminded me that community isn't always blood. Sometimes it's found in unexpected places, like the woman next door who remembers your birthday when your own son forgets. Booked a weekend in Santa Fe for the fall. Not with anyone, just me. A little Airbnb with blue shutters and a hammock under a peach tree. I wanted quiet. Art galleries. A market where I could buy something small and beautiful, just because. I took long walks through my neighborhood with a straw hat and a tote bag. Bought myself fresh tulips from the Saturday market, cooked meals I loved, plated them like I was serving guests, because I was the guest now, in my own home, in my own life. On what would have been my wedding anniversary, I wrote a letter to my late husband. Told him everything, about Ben, about the silence, about how I was learning to be okay with letting go. I told him I missed the days when being a mother felt like my favorite song. But now I was learning to hum a new melody, and when Mother's Day came around again, I didn't wait. I didn't check my phone. Didn't pace the hall. I woke up early, put on a soft dress, and took myself to brunch. A little cafe with a piano player in the corner and the smell of butter and lilacs in the air. I sat by the window, ordered French toast and strong coffee, and raised my glass of orange juice to the woman in the reflection. "To you," I whispered, and I meant it. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was clear. I loved my son. I always would. But love doesn't mean pretending you're not hurt. And it doesn't mean standing at the bottom of someone else's priority list just to be allowed on the page. If he came back, really came back, with presence, humility, warmth, I'd open the door, but I'd never shrink myself again to fit in his life. I was no longer a footnote. I was the author now. What would you have done in my place? Was pausing the payment too harsh or finally fair? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. They may never fully understand what they lost, but I finally understand what I've gained, myself. There's a strange peace that comes after heartbreak. Not the peace of forgetting. No, the memories are still there. The good ones especially. The tiny fingers curled in mine. The bedtime stories. The way Ben used to rest his head on my shoulder during thunderstorms. I don't erase those memories. I honor them. But I no longer let them bind me. I've learned that the most radical thing a woman of my age can do is reclaim her narrative. Not as a mother, not as a helper, not as a placeholder, but as a whole human being. It took being forgotten to remember myself. I spent so many years trying to earn my place in people's lives, quietly proving my worth with casseroles, co-signed loans, middle-of-the-night babysitting, and unconditional availability. I thought if I gave enough, they'd never let me go. But love that's only sustained by sacrifice is not love. It's dependency. And when that dependency shifts, when your usefulness fades, you see the truth. You see who still sees you, who still chooses you, and who never really did. I'm not bitter. That's important for me to say. Bitterness hardens. I've softened, but not in the way people assume. I've softened inward, like a seed swelling before it blooms. I'm more tender, with myself now, more careful about where I plant my energy. Some people will say, "But he's your son." Yes, he is, and I love him. But motherhood does not require martyrdom, especially when the altar is one-sided. I've made peace with the idea that he may never apologize in the way I once dreamed. I've let go of needing that final scene. No dramatic hug in the rain, no tearful speech, no perfectly wrapped closure. Sometimes closure is you, standing in your own kitchen, humming softly as you stir soup for one, and smiling. Sometimes healing is a quiet dinner, a warm bath, a new bowl you made with your own 2 hands, crooked and beautiful. Sometimes healing is the absence of ache where ache used to live. I don't measure love in bouquets or Facebook posts anymore. I measure it in presence, in effort, in the pause before speaking, in the willingness to show up when it's inconvenient. Love doesn't need spectacle. It needs sincerity. These days, I celebrate myself without waiting for permission. On Mother's Day, on my birthday, on random Tuesdays when the sky is blue and I remember who I am. I've learned how to set a table for one and still feel full. And if someone knocks on my door again, my son, his wife, or even my grandchildren, I'll answer with kindness. But I will never again answer out of duty, guilt, or desperation. Because I've remembered the woman I was before motherhood consumed me, and I love her too much to lose her again. To any woman watching this, whether you're a mother, a daughter, or simply someone who gives too much, I hope you know this. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not cold for stepping back from those who only remember you when they need something. And you are not unkind for expecting respect in return for your love. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is stop being so convenient to people who treat us like an option. This Mother's Day, I didn't wait for flowers. I became the garden.